Gender-based violence or violence against women and girls is considered a global pandemic that affects 1 in 3 women in their lifetime. Now, World Bank research finds that 35% of women worldwide have experienced either physical or sexual intimate partner violence or non-partner sexual violence. Now, these figures are mirrored in Nigeria, with 30% of girls and women aged between 15 and 49 reported to have experienced sexual abuse. Insurgency and protracted conflict have only served to exacerbate the occurrence of gender-based violence in the Northeast. Now, these alarming statistics explain the UN Secretary General's Unite by 2030 to End Violence Against Women campaign, marking the 16 days of activism against gender-based violence. And the Nigeria civil society continues to lend its voice to it. Beyond this, what other measures might be taken to curb gender-based violence in the country? Well, we'll find out soon enough. Welcome to Nigeria Today. My name is Victor Azu. Joining us to analyze the issues surrounding gender-based violence is Ladi Bala, National President, Nigeria Association of Women Journalists, NAWOJ. Welcome to the program.
Thank you, Victor.
Now, I've also been joined by Asma Benzis Leo, Gender and Development Consultant. Congratulations and welcome to Nigeria Today. Thank
you, Victor. It's my pleasure to be here. Good evening, viewer.
Let's crack this nut first, and I'm staying with you, Asma. What exactly does it mean when we say gender-based violence? And I ask because there are several genders, especially in today's world.
Well, thank you, Victor. Gender-based violence is a word that has become a household name in recent times. Why? Because it is a kind of violence that is perpetrated against an individual based on his specific gender. And most times, gender-based violence is also synonymous with the word violence against women. Why do we relate gender-based violence to violence against women? Because we discover that in the course of time, women are more susceptible to gender-based violence. That is why you find people either using violence against women or gender-based violence. So, but violence against women can either be violence that is perpetrated against a man or violence perpetrated against a woman. But the basic and the fundamental issue here is because that individual, that person is targeted because of his specific gender. Thank you.
And if you say the person is targeted because of specific gender, does gender-based aptly capture it when you say, it is synonymous with violence against women?
Every day, thank you. Because when you started the preview or the introduction, you made mention of statistics. Because globally, it is a known fact. Statistically, it is stated that 1 out of every 3 women in the world will either be coerced or be intimidated or be harassed or be physically abused in her lifetime. And this is a very alarming statistics. And basically, these victims, or who we call survivors, are usually women. So that is why we said gender-based violence is something that is widespread, is usually targeted at people based, like I said, on their gender, and because it is something that is overwhelming, that people are beginning to come out and talk about it, especially in third world countries like Nigeria. Before now, violence against women or gender-based violence has always been occurring, but people have not been talking. But because of the role of civil society organizations that have come out, especially women-based civil society organizations, they have been talking about it, they have been engaging about it, they have sponsored and advocated for a lot of legislation against gender-based violence. That is why the issue globally has come to the front burner, and anywhere you go now, people are talking about eliminating all forms of discrimination against women and gender-based violence, especially violence against women and girls in our communities.
Thank you very much indeed, Asma, for your opening shots. Ladi Bala, by the way, congratulations. I just realized that I extended the congratulations meant for you to a smile.
It's okay.
But what's your assessment of the prevalence of gender-based violence in this part of the world as compared with statistics elsewhere? Now, you may want to draw from, your experience in the Northeast.
Yes, I want to start by saying that gender-based violence is one of the world's most pervasive, outrageous, and very alarming human rights abuse that occurs almost on a daily basis, and putting the woman and the girl child in a very disadvantaged position in the society. Now, assessing the prevalence of gender-based violence, particularly in Northeast Nigeria, one can say is an alarming rate. Owing to the fact that that part of the country has been under serious attack by insurgents. The insurgency and conflict in that particular zone has exposed women and girls to uncommon kind of hardship and all forms of abuses. You need to visit...
Even before then? Wasn't it so before then?
Yeah, it is. It is an issue that has been ongoing in this country, but globally, and Nigeria in particular. But however, it has, in that particular region, it became more pronounced given the peculiarity of the insurgency that ravaged that particular region of the country. Because we see the situation whereby homes were destroyed, communities destroyed, people displaced, and most of these women, they lost their husbands in the course of the insurgency, and they found themselves in IDP camps spread across Adamawa, Borno, and Yobe, and in some part of Gombe states. And these women found themselves in a very terrible condition. I must confess to you, I've been to IDP camps. I've seen where they live. I've seen how they struggle to survive. A lot of interventions have been going on in northeastern Nigeria, particularly concerning the insurgency. But I must confess that those interventions are not actually addressing the real issue, because abuses are still going on in camps, and so our women are really exposed to a lot of conditions that are not favorably. I had an incident. One time I was at a camp during Christmas to find out how they are celebrating their Christmas, and I was shocked to realize that the kind of the way they share food, you have to come and queue, and then they'll give you like 2 measures for that you take it for 5 days. And these women, some of them have their children. It doesn't get to them. They are not satisfied. You see them trying to get themselves engaged in other venture that will earn them money, and they are being taken advantage of. So these are some of the abuses. A lot of efforts are being put in place, but there's still a lot still need to be done.
But what might some of the causes of the domestic violence that you see, particularly in the Northeast, be? And I keep emphasizing the Northeast because it has been mentioned. It's a major example, an area of example when you see statistics about Nigeria. And as fortunate as we might be, you happen to be from that axis.
Now, some of the root causes of domestic violence may not be far-fetched from the economic realities of the day. Now, you find a family, you find a home where perhaps the husband, the breadwinner, is not making enough.
It's not buoyant.
It's not buoyant enough, and then the children are there. The economic is biting hard, and issues surrounding how to keep the family alive comes on. And then if the man is not able to respond to those issues, and the woman feels that it's your responsibility to take care of this and that, it also leads to domestic violence. You see, men saying that, am I the only one that you expect me to shoulder the entire responsibility in the family? Those are issues that leads to domestic violence. And also, to me, lack of understanding, in the family, how to manage the realities that is on ground is also another root cause. Because when people understand where they are and the situation that they found themselves, it is much better, much easier for them to find a common ground, to resolve that issue. Especially given the COVID-19 pandemic, you know, this year, you discover that most families are forced to live together. Some families that maybe the husband wasn't staying together, maybe he's staying somewhere, and this time around they found themselves all staying together. The children are no longer in school, they're at home, you know. So it's an atmosphere that actually brought the family unit together, but in a sense too, it opens another door for other issues. Perhaps the man is not used to staying at home, they don't see regularly. This time around he stays 24/7 at home, you know, and lots of issues come up as a result of that, you know. So to me, I feel that the economic issue, basically cultural norms too contribute, because in some culture it is believed that it's the man that should run the family. It's not the responsibility of the woman, and this man is not financially strong, and he feels that why can't you also take off some of these yes, and the woman feels no, it's your responsibility. So these are issues that lead to domestic violence generally.
All right, thank you again, Ladi. But a recent study, ASMAO, by the Ministry of Women Affairs and the United Nations Population Fund, found that 28% or so of Nigerian women aged 25 to 29 have experienced some form of physical violence since age 15. Does this aptly capture the reality from your vantage position?
Mr. Victor, I must tell you that sometimes I will be forced to say this is not even the real figure, because most domestic violence issues are issues that are considered private in the domestic sphere. Most families don't like exposing violence, especially intimate partner violence. Intimate partner violence in the sense that even the security agencies, they tend to condone such kind of impunity from the men. They feel, oh, because the man beats the woman, or because the man was able to, you know, exact his power, masculinity over the woman, and so therefore, even when such issues are reported, it's always almost been said that they should go and sort out their issue because this is a domestic thing, so why should they bring it to the law enforcement agents? So most times you see women have to endure unnecessarily hardship in the home front. And for instance, you find out a woman, this COVID-19, what we call the shadow pandemic, has really exposed a lot of these issues and have brought them to bear. Why am I saying this? You discover that women in the home front, like my Ladi, yeah, my mate here is saying that the pandemic, you know, women were forced to live in the same house, and there were no access because movement was curtailed during the lockdown, and so most women have to endure because you can't report the cases. So the cases were underreported. So what we are saying is just, to me, it's just a statistic, an average of the daily occurrence of violence against women in the home front, in the domestic sphere. Talk more of the public space. There are, even with the COVID-19 social distancing protocols, guidelines by the Center for Disease Control, all these things, we see them in place. But look at the statistic. Is violence against women on the decline? No. Instead, it is on the rise on a daily basis, and this is something we say it is underreported. But you can imagine if every woman that has to go through this domestic violence or intimate partner violence has to report this case, then Nigeria will be surprised at the rate at which women are enduring hardship, violence, suffering in the home front. The home is supposed to be a space whereby women should feel safe. But why is it that of recent it has become a space where women's lives are being endangered? This is a question that every Nigerian should put it at the back of their minds and see that we prevent and we respond to violence against women.
All right, I'm tempted to ask Ladi if she has witnessed in the Northeast violence against men, but we'll keep her thinking about that while we go on this break. We'll be right back with Nigeria Today. This is Nigeria Today, and if you've just tuned in, let's bring you up to speed. We've been discussing curbing gender-based violence with Asma Benzis-Leo and Ladi Bala. Now, I asked just before we went on break, Ladi, just for the fun of it, have you experienced, violence against men in the Northeast where you are familiar with? Does it exist?
Yes, it does. When we talk about violence, it's just that a majority of the violence cases are with the women, on the women. But I must admit that even men too do experience one form of violence or the other. Psychological violence, when the family puts so much pressure on the man and he has no way out. To me, psychologically, that man is being reduced, he's being traumatized.
Indeed.
You see men being traumatized as a result of not being able to meet up with the expectation of members of his family. So to me, it's a kind of form of violence against the men. So this has also forced them to not really express themselves and to occupy their space as men in the family. So men do experience violence.
All right, thank you. At least that makes me feel a little better.
Yeah.
But let me ask Asma, because let's take it from there. Many have claimed that violence is more psychological these days. And I'll ask Asma, what is the totality of violence? What makes up violence? Is it only the physical?
When you talk about violence, there are various forms of violence.
Okay.
Violence can be physical, violence can be structural, violence can be economical, violence can be psychosocial. Violence can, translate itself or manifest in so many ways. So when you ask the question, do men suffer violence? I will be able to say yes. Economically, we live because of the nature of the economic depression, or what they call recession. A lot of men are under pressure to satisfy the needs of their family, and so economically you see them doing all they could to meet up. And sometimes when they come back home, or they suffer what we call verbal abuse, or verbal abuse that can translate to violence. The women insulting them, that you are not man enough, others are providing, and stuff like that.
Does that fall into the category of economic abuse? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, abuse is one thing and violence is another. You can abuse a person without physically putting
or rather economic violence.
Yeah, economically it's about the structure. You understand? When the economy affects individuals, affects groups, affects families, affects institutions, in one way or the other, it comes back to the individual, and that individual might be a man or a woman. But why are we singling out men in the context of economic violence? Because in African setting, we feel men are providers. Men are the head of the house. Men are the ones to be in the forefront of the workforce, and so even in the workplace. So it affects the entire economic spectrum of the family, the community, the society, and adversely the nation. So you will discover that the men will want to do all they could to meet up, and if they cannot meet up, it affects them. And that is what there is a synergy, or what we call an intersect, between the economic perspective or the economic violence to psychosocial violence, whereby the man can become depressed, the man can become suicidal, the man can even lose touch with reality, so, whereby we can cause psychosis.
So given the scope of the description you have given to violence now, how can we begin to mitigate gender-based violence? Let's begin with the domestic version, for instance.
There is not one approach to solving this issue. It has to take a multidimensional, multisectoral, comprehensive and well-coordinated approach to solving this issue, because it is not something that an individual would do. And in the instance of violence, especially intimate partner violence or domestic violence, we have to look at it from the foundation, which is the family, and what we call the basis of socialization. Men, women were socialized differently. So unless we go back to unlearn the process of social norms that has built on this issue of socialization, the preference for male child against female child, of making masculinity to have power over femininity, and to begin to subdue and discriminate women in all spheres of life, both at the economic level, at the public level. Look at it, even at the issue of governance. You understand? Because governance leadership translates into what comes out in the society. So if at governance level women are not represented, their concerns, their priorities, their needs are not met, it translates down to the simplest and the minutest aspect of the society, which is the foundation and the family. So for us to have a kind of approach that we deal with these issues, we have to go to the foundation, which is the family, then we come back to society, then we come back to institutions, then we come back to leadership, then we have a holistic approach, and that is when and only when we'll have solution to gender-based violence.
All right. I just worry sometimes when women say, oh, that we don't have representation here and there, but women always have a way of carving out something for themselves, and that's why we have NAWOJ, for instance. You have National Council for Women Affairs. You never have for men affairs. The ones for the men will take care of men and women. The one for women will take care of themselves. But it's fine. I'm sure we can deal with all that. But Ladi, what role can journalism play in curbing violence or gender-based violence we're talking about?
Journalists are a critical stakeholder in addressing the issues surrounding gender-based violence in our society today. One, primarily, part of our responsibility is to inform, to educate, and to entertain the public. Now, another role that journalists will play is the agenda-setting function of the media. As journalists, we have a big responsibility in setting agenda for the society, for stakeholders, for actors and government and non-government organizations in the fight to end gender-based violence. How do we go about it? Now, we need to create space, for the broadcast media to create airtime and generate content that address the issue of gender-based violence. And talking about the impact of gender-based violence on the individual, the family, the society, and the nation at large.
At least I can tell you for free that NTA has been doing this for quite some time.
NTA has been at the forefront, on this. And then
all right,
for the print media as well, to also make sure that part of their front pages, they should dedicate those front pages on the issues of gender-based violence.
All right,
when we do that, we'll go a long way in raising more awareness and also drawing the attention of stakeholders in addressing the issue.
Thank you, Ladi. Let me take a minute to extract from Asmao. Some experts maintain that there are often legal or cultural challenges in the way of eliminating violence against women in Nigeria. But what must be done to surmount such challenges? My time is short. Asmao.
Well, I must commend the federal government of Nigeria right from the last regime. They were able to pass, the last legislative house was able to pass the VAP Act, which is Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. Because the first procedure or the first aspect of resolving any issue should be constitutional, especially issues that has to do with culture, religion, and the way of life of the people. We have to look at it from a constitutional point of view, and that is why the VAP Act is a welcome idea. And recently, the sexual harassment bill that was passed into law. But still, we are hopeful that a lot of this, especially the gender and equal opportunity bill that is still pending, we request, because a lot of it.
All right.
If not,
my time is completely up now, but it's been my pleasure chatting with you two ladies on gender-based violence. But we have to go. Asmao Benzis Leo, Gender and Development Consultant, thank you very much for your time and insights on the program.
It's my pleasure.
And our own Ladi Bala, National President, Nigeria Association of Women Journalists, NAWOJ, thank you very much indeed for your perspectives on Nigeria today.
Thank you so much.
Now the program is live every weekday at 7:30 in the evening. And you can watch this and other editions of the program on www.youtube.com/NTA News 24 Hall. My name is Victor Azu. Thanks for your company.